Welcome to Building Kansas City. I'm Doug Wilder, your host, bringing you weekly stories from entrepreneurs, leaders shaping Kansas City. Whether you're established or just starting out, there's something here for everyone. Let's build KC together. All right, welcome to another episode of Building Kansas City. I'm here with Dustin Baker from Alcove Development. He's one of the managing partners. We're just going to get right into it and chit-chat about what you do. Most of the guests I have on here are... The reason I ask is because you're in an area of construction and building that I'm unfamiliar with. So I just find it fascinating to ask, like, what your career path looked like in the beginning, and then what your day-to-day looks like. So let's just start with the career path.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.
This is going to be fun. My career path. Went to Kansas State University and majored in agribusiness. That really correlates to what I do today. But then I started in banking. So I was a commercial real estate lender for almost 9 years in a couple of different community banks, but mostly community bank lending, real estate development lending. So I did that from 2000 to about 2009. Learned a lot of what I do today. I learned during my banking days. So, if there's a young person that is looking to get into the industry, I think banking really is a good path. Even if you want to start out in banking and then transition over to the real estate side, it transitions well. I believe, but. After I left banking during the Great Recession, and I became a CFO of a small, it was actually a landscape supply business in Lawrence, Kansas. We sold sod. We were a sod farm, traditional farming, and then we had a landscape supply business.
So finally being able to use some of that ag degree.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess that was my calling. But I did that for about 4 years, and then I transitioned over to an excavating company in Lawrence called R.D. Johnson Excavating. And I was their co-controller. I did collections, did billing. I was their HR director. I did that for about 4 years as well. We were about 100 employees when we sold the company in 2016. And we were doing somewhere in the neighborhood in between 25 and 50 million in revenue. But we sold that company in 2016, and then we started Alcove Development.
Nice.
And Alcove Development was started with the owner of R.D. Johnson Excavating, Roger Johnson, his son, Jeremiah, and then myself. So it was us three in 2016, just kind of starting out. And I had done some previous small real estate development projects back when I was in the early 2000s. When I was in banking, I had done a couple of different projects. I built a car wash ground up, did a storage facility ground up, 221 unit storage facility, then did a small residential subdivision. So I had kind of cut my teeth on that prior to the recession. And then when I was working for Roger Johnson at the excavating company, I was helping he and his partners on some real estate projects. I was putting together stuff, then slowly became a part of some of the projects. And then it was just a natural transition to real estate development, when we sold the company.
So we're all young. We have this vision of what we want to do when we grow up. So you go to college, agribusiness. What was that going to look like? What was that?
So when I was growing up, I worked for a lot of farmers around the area in DeSoto. I actually grew up in DeSoto. And
I think all kids should work for farmers, by the way.
Absolutely. I owned, I ran my own hay crew a couple of summers. So just really learned work ethic during that time. But I always had, working for farmers. I had some a small hand in some livestock myself. We had horses. And I went to, I had to pay for school myself, so I went to Johnson County Community College first. And when I was graduating from Johnson County Community College, my girlfriend at the time, and now my wife, was graduating from Johnson County as well, and she said, "Well, I'm going to go to K-State." And so I was like, "Well, I might as well go to K-State too." So, with my, my previous background with working with farmers, I thought at the time that when I went to K-State, that I wanted to be a veterinarian. So I started out down the path my first year in K-State with all like science classes, animal science classes. And I quickly learned that my passion and my strength was not science.
Not science. That's a tough gig, though, correct?
Yeah, yes, it is. Very, very tough. But I was taking some agribusiness classes during that time, and just the business side of the going to school and taking some of those classes really resonated with me. But by the time I had taken the first year, which would have been my junior year of college, I had taken so many agricultural classes that I couldn't transfer over to just the College of Business. So that's why I got an agribusiness degree instead.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, my grandpa was a dairy farmer, and I always said that either going in the military or working on a farm would give young kids great work ethic. It should be something that maybe is mandatory for 4 years at least, one or the other.
I believe so. I would agree.
Especially haying, like you said, that's tough work.
It is. It really is.
So one thing you said in there, you said you were an HR director.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that, because I feel like I would always like stick a pin in my eye in that particular field. I don't know much about it, but seems rough.
It was not, sometimes you just have to put the hat on and wear it. In a small business, like I said, when I came aboard RD Johnson Excavating, we had 35 employees, and when we sold, we had 100. And during that time, when we figured out, oh man, we really need somebody that kind of focus on HR. Everybody looked around the room and go like, not it. And unfortunately, I wasn't part of that meeting, so I got chosen. And but like I said, in small business, you just have to do what you have to do. And
I would imagine in retrospect, it really helps you deal with people today.
It did. I have to be in I had to attend every interview, right? So going from 35 to 100. Part of that interview process of 65 people, you get to pick up on body language. Really taught me a lot about also lending when I was a lender. Dealing with people and their body language and eye contact and how they answer questions. Those sorts of skill sets really comes important.
Yeah, I would imagine at the time, well, much like all of our careers, that when you're in something, it might not be your favorite thing, but eventually you look back on something and go, yeah, I actually learned a little something from that I can apply. So simplest terms, development, finding a plot of land, putting a business on it, and developing that business. That's a simple version, but give me the long story of development.
Yeah, when we first started out in 2016, we really had it wasn't like, okay, we really love X, industrial or multifamily or medical. So what we really decided at that point in time was we really loved the west of 435, that area. So we were really trying to focus on a geographic area. We're a small development shop. So what that meant to us was, you find a good piece of property that you like in that area, and then we have to figure out what makes the most sense for that property. Like in Eudora, I'll give you an example. In Eudora, Kansas, south of the highway, Roger Johnson actually owned a piece of ground. and it was vacant. We didn't know what to do with it, but it sat on the main thoroughfare. It was zoned residential at the time, but in talking to people in the community, what was really needed after we talked to city council, we talked to the senior foundation, we talked to the planning commission members and the Chamber of Commerce, and come to find out what was really needed in the area was an assisted living facility. We knew nothing about assisted living, but we knew that ground really, after doing, we ordered a market study. The market study came back and said that yes, the area could support a small assisted living facility. So then it was a matter of, okay, first of all, from my banking days, I know, okay, I'm not going to operate the assisted living facility. I need an operator. So we talked to a lot of different operators and finally found a group out of Topeka, Midwest Health, that owns and manages over 100 assisted living facilities, really knows their stuff. And then we worked with them to come up with a building type. We hired an architect, an engineer, and really tried to fit a building to the site.
At somewhere along the line, does this needed to be rezoned?
It did. So, while we're working with Midwest Health, we had to hire a civil engineer, come up with a site plan, and usually you can go to the city without a quote unquote a concept and get your land rezoned. But that's the technical way to do it. But in reality, a lot of times your city council members, your planning commissioners, first thing they're going to ask you is what are you going to do with the property? So you have to spend a little bit of money. And in development, you have to spend quite a bit of money at risk before you really know that you have a project. So we had to hire a civil engineer and an architect to come up with a design and a site plan. And then we took it to the city council and the planning commission, and then city council, and requested a rezoning at the same time that we were asking for the site plan approval.
So in 2016, when you guys break out on your own, is this a scary proposition for you guys? Is this something? What were the scary moments?
Wasn't really scary. We, based on Roger's background, we had some land available to us that he owned. So, and he had done residential subdivisions, in the past with his excavating company. So that was kind of a natural fit for us. So we, started off with a subdivision in Lawrence called Fairfield Farms. That was at that time, a 59 lot subdivision. And so we already owned the ground. We had to plat it, get the preliminary and final plat approved, get financing in place, and then put in all the streets, the infrastructure, subdivide the lots, and then sell. At that time, we were selling lots to individual home builders. So we had that parcel, and we had a few other projects that we were working on pretty much right out of the get-go. We were working on a 22,000 square foot building that was built in the 1960s that was owned by the Fraternal Order of Eagles in Lawrence. We had a user for the building already. It was a medical user, a pediatric office, a medical office, and so we had that building that we were working on, so we worked with an architect and it was Panda Pediatric. We were working with their team to fully gut the building, put in all new plumbing, electrical, and bring it up to today's standards. And then they signed a long-term 20-year lease for, and we still own that property today. So we had some projects kind of already, I guess the point is we had some projects in the pipeline already when we started off.
Oh, and it sounds like you had some background.
Quite a bit.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's why I love this business, right? So before the kids are playing in the streets and trees are growing in your yard, there's years of work for you guys to get to a particular development to what we see today, isn't it?
Yeah. Like the project that I'm working on now, Residents at Lexington in DeSoto. That project, we broke ground in October of last year. Prior to that, I had been working on that project I had purchased my partners and I had purchased the ground in August of 2022.
Wow.
So it took us a little over 2 years to, get the plans done, get the site plan approved, get the financing in place, which, as I think a lot of people in the development space can attest, financing, equity, debt was a little challenging during that time. Interest rates were increasing on us, costs were increasing, but luckily we got it to the finish line.
So obviously we compete with other companies that are like us. Is that the same in the development world? So you guys are obviously looking for land acquisitions years and years ahead of any kind of project, correct?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we're always on the hunt. Eventually we're going to expand our territory. Like I told you right now, our territory is 435 west to basically follow that all the way to I-70, and we're doing stuff in Topeka. So DeSoto, Eudora, Lawrence, Topeka, and then south, call it Gardner, Edgerton, Wellsville, Ottawa, and then up north, we're working on a project right now with the city of Basel. We would go to Tonganoxie, so draw a radius around that. We're looking in that area, and I wouldn't say we necessarily compete with developers all the time on land acquisition, but if somebody is proposing a project, like let's say a multifamily project, and the market can only support so much, right? So if you have a project that you bought a piece of land for, and you're looking at developing it, and then another developer comes in and wants to put let's say I'm putting in a 300 unit apartment complex, and I think the market could support it, and now developer B comes in and proposes another 300 units. Well, if we're going to do it at the same time,
maybe it doesn't support
it. The market is what we're competing for.
So once you develop a property like that, does it stay in your possession? You guys are the owners of that, or does that get turned over? You guys sell that particular? How's all that work?
So far, most of our projects, almost all of our projects, except the single-family residential developments, obviously, we've kept.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then, so then you have a managing part of the development firm?
We are heavily connected to a property management company, actually two, Yates and Yates, Denise and Nicole Yates. They're working with us on the Residents at Lexington and some other projects. They're a great team. And then Cornerstone Property Management out of Eudora, a gentleman by the name of G.W. Weld, who actually is a partner of our company. We just made him a partner this year. He owns the property management company that we use.
So is there some land out there that's just unattainable? So you got to fight a little bit harder to cut a deal than other pieces of property?
Well, the first thing you look at in our world is utilities. If utilities are a long ways away, that's almost a deal killer, unless you can work with the city and they can extend the utilities to you, or they're willing to. The other factor, future land use. If we're looking at a piece of property and we really think the best use is, let's say, a medical office building, but the future land use map has it as zoned for industrial in the future, we're we're probably not interested in industrial right now. That's just not. We feel like that's just another world.
Right.
I'd say attainable land values are becoming harder and harder. The price point, especially in the DeSoto area, there's been so much speculation on land values that it's kind of becoming a little bit, it's a lot challenging to make the numbers work unless you have some sort of financial incentive to do the project.
Well, it's fascinating to me. I'm from Omaha originally, and so much like the Omaha area, the Kansas City area is, it doesn't take very long to drive out of the city and hit, rural farmland.
Yep.
Stuff that seems obtainable. And obviously the cities are all both growing out. So you're seeing a lot of that land from when I was a kid till now that's obviously been developed and have subdivisions and hospitals and stuff like that in it. So you're the guys that are doing all that stuff.
Yeah, it's really. That's the part that's cool, right?
Yeah.
You look back after you work and work and work on a project, and then when you're in it, it's a grind. I mean, it really is. I like the grind, but it is a grind. But then when you're finished and you're driving through town and you're looking at something that you were a part of, it takes a village to do a project.
Sure,
it really does. But knowing that you were a part of it is pretty cool.
Got to be an enormous sense of pride.
Yeah,
I would
it really
imagine.
is.
I mean,
yeah.
you really have to have some vision, I would assume. You just see a plot of land that's either full of trees or corn on it.
Yeah.
You got to be able to see what you can put there.
You got to have a good vision. You have to have a good team. If you have a good architect and a good civil engineer behind you, they can be creative as well. I can't tell you how many times I've looked at a piece of ground and it's like, I know what I kind of want, but not sure that it's going to fit on there or what you can do. And, we sit down with a blank slate with an architect, and it's pretty amazing what they can come up with if you kind of give them a little bit of what you're dreaming.
Well, much like any construction project, it's kind of cool to see that creation come to life. So I would assume it would be the same for
it is
160 acres.
Yeah, for sure. Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's fascinating.
But like I said, it's really cool to. I take a lot of pride in the teams that I feel like we're team building too on every project, right? So, residents at Lexington, I can tell you, like the architect, Adam's architect out of Lawrence. CFS engineers, Ronco Construction's been awesome on that project.
Yeah, good people.
Yeah. And, there's a lot of challenges along the way, but I feel like I just have to be the leader and provide, the end goal, and always make sure that the team thinks about certain things along the way. Budget's one of them.
Sure.
I'm the driver of the budget, so I have to make sure that the team always has the budget in mind. But when you have a good team and you really put them together and they're syncing, it really makes a project go smoothly.
How big is the Alcove team?
We're pretty small.
Yeah.
So we have myself, Jeremiah Johnson's a partner, G.W. Weld's a partner. And then our CFO, Scott McKinney, is a partner as well. And then we have an office manager / accountant, Chelsea, and that's it right now. We bring on an intern every now and then from KU to help us out, but we're probably going to need some additional hands here before too long. We do own a small construction company too. AU Construction, and we utilize some personnel back and forth between that, but they're small as well. I think they have eight. They're an 8-person team right now, so
just a couple small groups out there grinding away.
we are.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a
nice.
grind every day.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
The projects that obviously the land, you said the land will kind of dictate what you might be putting there.
Yep.
But you got some projects that you really like to work on, or is it just? You said you don't really like to dabble in the Industrial.
Yeah.
But you have something you prefer more than others?
Well, I would just say it's kind of been a natural progression over this, 9+ years. Well, naturally, we've progressed through subdivisions, residential subdivisions. We're working on a couple right now. One in Eudora. We just completed one with a partner in DeSoto. So subdivisions are kind of a natural for us because we just understand the business. And then multifamily, of course, it was just a natural progression. We were already doing, single family residential, and we understand the horizontal construction and putting in all the infrastructure and the land. So that was a natural. And then for some reason, I really don't know why, but for some reason, medical has really been a focal point for us. We did a ground up development with the veterinarian in DeSoto, Veterinarian Clinic. We did a 5,000 square foot building for him. It was actually 10,000, two levels, 5,000 for him. Like I said before, we did Panda Pediatric, the 22,000 square foot single user medical office building. We've done an ophthalmologist group. We still own that building in Lawrence. It's a 6,000 square foot building. We've done a dental clinic in DeSoto, urgent care facility in DeSoto. What else? We're getting ready to start a optometrist build out in DeSoto, and for some reason, just medical is. I've been kind of a natural fit.
That's the great thing about construction, right? This business, which I like so much, because that grind in an office or even maybe banking, the fact that I get to work on a different project all the time.
Oh yeah, it's awesome.
So cool. Yeah,
I don't know what I would do. Even in banking, because I dealt with so many borrowers in different industries, that was cool to me. But doing what I do now is just really cool because I'm working on 9 or 10 different projects right now, and they're all different.
Yeah. So, I love the idea of, even some of the more technical, difficult stuff where I have to challenge my brain a little bit to come up with some ideas and create some stuff that we may not see every day. That stuff's a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you, when you develop a subdivision, obviously other businesses we want to come in there, right? We prompt that sort of thing. You guys handle some of that ancillary stuff outside of the subdivisions, whether it be shopping centers or restaurants or strip malls, or how's all that? Medical facilities obviously come into play, but is that part of the plot when you're looking at a piece of land? Like what? I mean, I would assume the city officials would also want to be able to drive business to the city.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we will look at a piece of ground and see, like, the subdivision, if it makes sense, like if it's along the highway and there's, let's just say it's an 80-acre parcel that has road frontage along a major highway, but the back half of the 80 could be a single family subdivision. Well, it just makes sense that the front half would be probably parceled out into a retail pad sites for restaurants, and we wouldn't necessarily build them. Obviously, we would just break it out, probably put it in the road, and then sell the pad sites to different users.
So is the pad site is just a chunk of land?
Yep.
That you sell to an Applebee's,
right?
So to speak. So are you done then with the land, or is that a lease agreement?
Typically, I would be done with the land. The way the industry works a lot of times is the franchises, the restaurant franchises will have relationships with a developer group. I have not developed that type of relationship yet, but not opposed to it, but I just haven't done it. And they'll have their own developer that would probably reach out to me and buy the pad site from me, build it, and then normally they would build it and then lease it to the franchise, and then typically they'll sell that lease on a triple net basis at a cap rate.
Gotcha.
Right?
So when you guys are developing a subdivision neighborhood, it's streets, sewer, is it water?
Yep, streets, sewer, water, curb, gutter, storm, electric. You have to run the electric.
And you guys are working with what architects to divide up each I guess plan site for each house.
Yeah, so you'll work with a civil engineer
Okay.
to develop your preliminary plat, which basically will subdivide the property into lots, and each city has their own rules and regulations. Minimum side yard setbacks, minimum front and rear setbacks. But that plat will dictate lot size, width of the lots, the length of the lots, and you're going to want to really think about your the price point of the end price point of your lot. Is usually rule of thumb in the industry is you can take your lot retail cost that I have to sell my lot to the builder for, and that's going to be about 20% of the total price of the house.
Gotcha.
So if I'm, selling a lot for say $100,000, the minimum price of that house in that subdivision is rule of thumb is going to be $500,000
Gotcha.
or more, right? In today's market.
I know you were not developing at the time of 2008, right? During the recession.
I was a lender though.
Lender, which was ugly for all of us.
That's right.
I remember driving through subdivisions where, I would see 8, 10 framing crews, churning away, building houses, creating neighborhoods and just ghost towns,
Right.
countless over and over again. What was it like? Do you recall what it was like for developers back then? Does everything just shut down for those guys?
Yeah. Well, back then, the really the issue became there were a lot of lots on the market. And so we had to work through, that's part of the problem. We had to work through so much inventory. Kansas City market really took us until 2013, 2014, 2015 before we worked through the lower priced lots in the market. So, the houses that were being built in that time frame were working off of lots that were, 25, 30 cents on the dollar versus what they would be. And so that's been kind of part of the inflation factor, right? In the metro area is we blew through all the, not blew through, but we worked through all the low price, pennies on the dollar lots. And now developers had to go in and put, new roads, new streets at a new price point, right? And all that stuff costs more money. The land costs more. The infrastructure costs more. And so, but back then, it was tough. I saw a lot of, I was in it a little bit because I mentioned before I was developing a little bit on my own while I was in banking, and that, it affected me too. But I saw a lot of developers and a lot of banks that were very good at what they did. And they just got, market changed on them on it, right. It happened overnight for us. Right.
Yeah, it was a crazy time. We were fortunate enough, our company, CKF, we had just started a big commercial project in Omaha, and it happened to be one of the largest in the Midwest at the time, and actually really helped carry us through because our residential side was pretty much next to nothing. But it was an interesting time for everybody for sure.
Was it a condo project?
It was. It was eight separate buildings put together. The finance was coming through Mutual of Omaha Insurance Company, and so it ended up being, really helped us kind of sustain those couple of years that we were involved with that project. So, not to mention, I think it really kind of helped the Omaha area as well, because a lot of people were employed on those projects.
Yeah.
So give me a short-term goal for Alcove.
Not go broke. I don't know. Work through, short term, I would say in the next year. We have several projects that we've started. We need to get them stabilized, get residents at Lexington that's a big project for us. That 382 units, 70 plus $1 million total project cost. That's a big project for our small group. Work through that, get it stabilized, and then get some of the projects that we have in the pipeline started. Probably hire another accountant for the office in that time. But I'm a real practical person, so you talk about goals. I think strategic, actual tangible goals. So those would be some goals for us short term.
Well, long term sounds like you had a little growth in mind as well, hiring some new staff and.
Yeah, long term, I would say expand our territory. Probably come into Kansas City and identify some target markets that strategically pieces of ground that maybe from some referrals. I'm right now looking at a project in Olathe, southern Olathe, that was a referral from an architect friend of mine.
So stay on the Kansas side?
Stay on the Kansas side, but I wouldn't be opposed to going into Missouri. But just try to expand the territory some. Probably narrow the focus a little bit more. Right now, because we are a small shop and I specifically narrowed our geographic footprint because we are small. And so that, in my mind, because we're looking at a narrow geography, we can expand the product that we would identify to develop. When we expand our geography, I think we have to narrow the niche that we are in.
Project type?
So my thinking is probably multifamily and medical. The two areas that I've kind of focused and keyed on that we are good at. Single family development, I think, is in a transition period right now. It's really hard for these small home builders to turn a profit and find lots. It's unfortunate because that's what I cut my teeth on in the banking world. Is I had a lot of small builders that would build 5 to 20 houses a year. That's tough. That's tough in today's market, unless you're really, really, you just go super custom. But doing the subdivision stuff that we cut our teeth on, it's hard to go in and make. I can't go in and. Used to be in the past, you would buy a piece of ground and you could really break it down into phases and do a small phase and still come out okay. So I could come in and do, 25 lots for each phase and do 100 lot subdivision, 25 lots each phase, and be okay. With the economics of what it cost me to buy the dirt, put in all the infrastructure, cover any financing. Typically, we don't finance the dirt purchase, but we will finance some of the infrastructure cost. You have to do a bigger phase to make it work. Then what you're needing is somebody to take down all those lots, unless you're going to build on them all yourself, and that's just not our business model. So a lot of the national home builders in the market right now, D.R. Horton, Lennar.
Lars in here,
I'm strategic about some of the subdivisions that I'm doing right now, but I don't see that as a long-term viable business model for myself. So I'm probably leaning towards multifamily and medical.
I mean, it's admire the builders out there that are trying to keep their house at a price. We work with several builders that are really trying to keep it down to the low 300s. Some trying to get below 300 just for the first-time homeowner.
Right.
I really admire them. It's incredibly hard what they're doing.
It is.
So yeah, I obviously we need that sort of price point out there. It's a shame some of our children they've just given up on the idea to afford housing.
Yeah.
Have that so-called American dream.
It's tough.
Yeah, very tough. I mean, when I look at even some of the houses now that are, around the 450 range, and it's like, just, what are you doing? What is every kid coming out of high school, college going to, how are they going to afford these houses?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's tough. So I admire all those people out there that are working so hard to find that little niche.
Yeah, the state of Kansas, we have done some programs with the state of Kansas, the Kansas Housing Resource Corporation. We have a subdivision in Carbondale, Kansas, south of Topeka, that we did a 20-lot subdivision. Worked with the state of Kansas on their grant program and their Kansas income tax credit program for single-family housing, and we were able to bring in a price point of a house. Now it's in Carbondale, south of Topeka, but we were selling houses in the 230 range.
Nice.
And so we have been participating in some of those. It's moderate income housing is what the program is, and it's been a rewarding program to be a part of. We're actually doing one of those in Edwardsville, Kansas, so off of K32 highway. Bought a piece of ground and we put in one long cul-de-sac. We did 25 townhouse lots, and we are currently building in there right now. The townhouse. We're bringing each of the units on for roughly $350 to $375, but they're really big and they have basements. Most of them are not slab on grade.
Nice.
So
that is good.
yeah,
I feel like society sometimes has to rethink what they live in too. When I grew up, we shared the same bathroom as my parents.
right.
I'd have to beat on the door to get my sisters out of the bathroom so I could use the facility. So, we were all kind of grouped together, and that's the way it is. And so now with everybody having their own bathroom and the houses being so damn large and three-car garages, it might be something where we just got to kick back to something a little more simpler.
Yeah, I mean, look at Prairie Village, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with that.
And people are dying to get. I mean, just
Exactly. People would love to live in Prairie Village.
I always wonder why, small communities like that, whether it be like a Waldo, a Brookside, a Prairie Village, the homes that so many people want to get into now, the Tudors,
Right,
the little
right,
cottages, the little craftsman houses. Why can't we do a subdivision in that? But it just won't work. It's so, you look at all those homes and all the architecture that they put on them, and the time that they built those houses.
Yes.
And you just can't build those houses nowadays.
It's very, very challenging.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's not just the house, the home builder. It is everything that goes into it, right? It's the time frame it takes to get on my side of the equation. The time frame it takes to get a subdivision approved. It's the land cost. It's the cost. Back in 2016, when we kicked off Alcove and we had that first subdivision, I'm not talking about the land, but just the streets, the water line, the sewer line, the storm sewer, the curb and gutter, all the infrastructure costs that it took to put in a lot. We always factored, and we hit it. It would cost us $15,000 to $20,000 a lot to put in the infrastructure. Nowadays, it costs you about $40,000 to $50,000 just for the infrastructure per
crazy.
lot, and that's just your normal density lot. If you go a little bit larger, it's going to cost you more, and that's why you have to go, more dense.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Couple more questions. First couple projects you developed to now, what have you learned? What some of your favorite stuff or some of your lessons?
So, well, I go back to team. In the beginning, we selected, not the wrong person, but the wrong person for the particular project that we were wanting to do.
Sure.
That you might as well end up banging your head against the wall the entire time. So your design team, make sure they have experience in the project that you're wanting to do. and make sure they're really, really good communicators. Because on the other side, I've had a design team members that were really good, but they were not great communicators. And then you're wondering where they're at all times. You're having to try to, you're having to check in with them all the time, and they just would not communicate with me. So pick really good communicators and the right person for the project on your design team. That's one of the most important keys that
Always the culture, isn't it?
It is.
Like, how can we, projects are great. All that stuff's great. The grind is even great sometimes. Even the chaos is great sometimes, but do we have the right people, the right attitudes, the right culture working with us?
It means everything.
Everything.
I mean, finance is finance, right? I mean, we could go on forever about, financing one of these projects, right? But in the end, it really does. And even that, it boils down to, on the banking side, making sure you have the right lender in your corner, right?
Yeah.
And even the right loan officer to represent you at the loan committee.
Yeah.
So it really does just all come back to team.
Yeah. I always said, even, how do you pick your doctor? I'm like, well, somebody had to graduate at the bottom of their class. So let's make sure we pick and interview the right one.
Right. Exactly.
So I always close out the podcast by asking, give me something you learned from a failure.
Oh my gosh. Well, I can tell you that we talked about 2008, right? So some of the things that I learned, it affected me on some of the projects that I had going at the time. And what I learned on that is make sure that you don't push the project and I'm just talking specifically development. Don't try to push the project so much from a financing and structure standpoint just because you're in love with the project. Make sure that you have enough equity in the project, cash equity. I'm not a big proponent of these, no money down. That might work on an existing, like going and buying a single family house that exists and doing a rehab and that. But I do ground up construction, really risky projects. And if you don't get the structure of your financing correct and you try to push the envelope too much, it's going to lead to problems.
Awesome.
Big problems.
Well, we were joined today by Dustin Baker with Alcove Development. Fascinating conversation. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you for having me.
I enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, same.
All right.
Same. Thanks.
Thanks for joining us on Building Kansas City. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe to our YouTube, Spotify, or Apple podcast and share it. Until next time, keep building Kansas City. Take care.